Good Saturday afternoon. What month are we in? October. What day are we on? 22nd. This week, a couple of quotes have stayed in my head. Well, let's see if they've stayed in my head by testing it out now. The first one, talking of staying in my head, was from a TED talk that I watched. The guy who gave the talk, I can't remember. But one thing that he said is, keep your head or your mind empty. So I just heard that. I actually fell asleep, I think, for the rest of it. Because it was in the evening and I was tired. But that stayed in my head and I thought, yeah. So what I understood he was saying was, when you've got something in your head, deal with it and get it out of your head. Act. So keep your head space free. And actually, the next day, I did that with something I thought, you know how it is, you think, oh, I need to do this, but it's not a priority, so I'm going to leave it. But it was in my head. So I thought, well, I'm going to act on what he says, and I'm just going to do it. So I did. And I think I tried to do that with a few things, but that's the only example that I can think of standing here right now. The second thing that comes to me is, as I've probably said, I've been rereading parts of Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. I've never read that book from cover to cover, but then it's not the sort of book that you would read from cover to cover, I don't think. Two things from it. There was a quote that he gives from a Zen Buddhist, Rensia, R-E-N-S-I-A, S-I-S-S-S-A-I, or R-E-N-S-I-A, or the S could be a Z, or E-N-Z-I-A-I, who said, what did he say? What more is required in this moment? And that sounds a bit like what I say, which is the only thing that's required of you is this moment. He says, what more does this moment need? And I think, if you're like me, the answer is the moment doesn't need anything when we totally focus on the moment. The other thing that says to me from Eckhart Tolle is the reminder that it was as he faced his fear, which was almost committing suicide because of how his life was, but it was as he almost went to it. I don't know exactly what happened. But when he kind of crossed that line and realized, I'm prepared to kill myself or whatever, if it was that. When he got to that place, something changed. He got to the other side of the fear where he was prepared to do it. And actually in doing that, he seemed to face fear itself. And that became the turning point for him. I suppose because he may have thought, well, if I've got to this point and actually I'm not afraid of anything, including killing myself, why should I be afraid of anything? I mean, it probably wasn't quite like that, but that's my interpretation of it. And I can kind of see that if we faced our fears, and I'll probably write something about this, what would happen if we faced our fears? Would we blow up? I don't think so. So what would happen if we actually faced our fears? I mean, clearly some fears, such as something like suicide, you wouldn't want someone to get to the other end of it. So you have to be careful about what's being said. If it does something like turns you around like it did Eckhart Tolle, or if you get to a place, I remember, it's not the same, but it gives me a similar thought. I got fed up working at McDonald's years ago, and I was like, going to give him my notice. And then I had this realization, well, if I'm going to give him my notice, I could live like I'm going to give him my notice. So like, I will go in, and if I don't want to do it anymore, I'll just finish it. And I went in every day and I thought, if I don't want to do this, I'll give in my resignation. And actually, I finished the contract and I didn't. But knowing that I could, and that I'd come to that point, kind of freed me up. It kind of did happen in something else. more personal in my life, where in giving up, being prepared to give up relationships in order to keep some sense of sanity, it then made maybe the other people realize what did they want from the relationship with me. And if they wanted to have a relationship with me, then there would have to be boundaries to that relationship. And then maybe we could. But that wouldn't have happened until I got to a point where I was no longer attached. Which kind of brings in the Buddhist notion of attachment causing our suffering. But of course there's a big one, not to be attached to things. But there seems to be something in there about no longer being attached, emotionally attached. So there we are. Some thoughts for Saturday.